All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Sunday night. It's Sunday night football. I am joined by Matt Belman as we get into a good game. Well, it would have been a good game, but I believe that Washington Commanders victory knocked out the Dallas Cowboys mathematically for the playoffs. So they are no longer in it. Not that they would have been much after tonight. So now they're playing the role of spoiler. They're trying to avoid having one of their worst losing seasons in Jerry World, in the history of Jerry World, actually in the history of Dallas Cowboys at home, regardless of what stadium they're playing in. Matt, how are you feeling about this? You got a lot riding on this game.
How do I have a lot riding on this game?
Well, you just listed a litany of players who are partaking in this game
sorry.
that you're going against.
I completely forgot already. Yeah, year-long fantasy. I have a lot going riding on this game. It was looking like I was going to be in the clear, but I'm going to need a pretty good outing from CD, Rick Dowdle, and Aubrey, but hopefully they can get me there. Yeah, how'd your I know your DFS Sunday didn't go great, neither did mine. My best lineup had Brenton Strange, and he got put in the doghouse, I guess, after that fumble. So sad faces over here.
Yeah, it was not great. It looks like I'm gonna break even on the first portion of my play $1,000 in NFL DFS on DraftKings. So that's always a bonus. 782 in, 769 out. So hopefully I do okay on the night slate, and then I'm one step closer to those free tickets that or not free, but the tickets I'm trying to earn there. You know, I love those games within the game. I was telling you on Yahoo, ooh, the secret site gutted me. 500 in, $1 out. This is not a good night on Yahoo. So we won't be talking about the secret site tonight. Screw them. But what happens? We've got a fun one here. The only things we need to know for inactives are Deuce Vaughn and Jalen, not Tolbert, Jalen Brooks are out for the Cowboys. No real surprise there, especially since Brandon Cook is back and Deuce Vaughn has basically been banished for the last several weeks to the practice squad or to the inactive list. And then Cade Otton is out. So we got some stuff to talk about with that. That's not a surprise. He was ruled out a couple days ago, but that is something that's going to give us some talking points here because that opens up some discount dandies on DraftKings. We got a couple $200 and $600 ballers down there that we can look at, but we can kind of get underway here, Matt. What do you think of the overarching game here? How much of a chance do you give the Cowboys to win?
You know, they're a 4-point home dog, 4 to 3.5. I don't think it'd be like some crazy upset. I think that Tampa is the better team. I don't think anyone would dispute that. And most of the time they're going to win this game. But Dallas isn't like awful. And they've played okay as of late. So what percentage I would give them? Probably, I don't know, 35% chance of winning this game.
All right. Hey, shout out to Comment God's mom. Says his mom got second in the 10 set and third in the quarter. Nice.
Real nice.
Nice. You know, she can use promo code Celebrate and get the rest of the Sims package for NFL. This NFL Max Sims package for just $179 for the remainder of the season. That's now through the Super Bowl. And there are oodles, I tell you, oodles of showdown slates coming up, of partial slates. We've got games on Christmas. We have a 4 days of NFL next week. It's going to be fun. Of course, week 18, we're just down to Sunday, but then the wild card, they're back to playing that one game on Monday night. And then, of course, we get those wonderful Saturday, Sunday slates and the Saturday, Sunday combined slates in the wild card and the divisional rounds. So we've got a lot of football ahead of us here. So Comic God, have your mom check that out. And actually, if she got second or third, you know, you could always have her send a screenshot of her with the Stokastic avatar showing that victory there and firing that off to Stokastic HOF on Twitter. And you can send the contact support at stokastic.com and she can get herself a month of any Sims package that she would like. No, let's forget that. For her, we're going to give a special deal. 1 month of all access Sims. I'm just telling you, maybe she'll let you borrow that. Wouldn't that be nice for much like you borrowed the car? Maybe you could borrow her Stokastic Sims package. Okay, so We'll revisit all of our fun here, but at the top here, let's talk about the Buccaneers. So they are in line, battling to win the AFC, or probably the NFC South. They've got Mike Evans looking to get 1,000 receiving yards for an 11th straight year. So he's got 749 right now. He also has 9 touchdowns. He led the league last year with 13. He's having a solid year, and he missed a few games. I believe 3 games. So he has been getting a lot of work with Chris Godwin out. So nothing really exciting there, since we've seen that for a while. But the Dallas secondary, they're down everybody. Travion Diggs is out for the rest of the year. Kalen Carson, Marcus Bell, Josh Butler, they're all out. Jordan Lewis is dealing with an elbow issue. Wanye Thomas, he's inactive tonight. He's dealing with the knee. He's kind of the return. He does some special teams returning, but he's also their free safety. So that's kind of a loss there. So this is kind of interesting to see what's going to happen here. But let's take it from the top with Baker Mayfield. So trivia question as I hand it over to you, Mr. Cleveland Browns fan. Do you know who the starting quarterbacks were the year before Baker Mayfield? I did not remember. You could give me 100 guesses and I wouldn't have got it.
So the year after Tom Brady.
No. At Cleveland, who started in 2016? He was drafted in 2017 after he won the Heisman. Who started in Cleveland the year before Baker Mayfield?
Who was starting? God, I know who this is.
I'll give you a hint. One game was started by Kevin Hogan. The other 15 were by another player. Look at that. You've blocked this out. DeShone Kizer.
Oh, wow. That was really.
I totally didn't even think of him.
I didn't realize that was so recent, which I didn't realize that was the guy before Baker. The odd thing is, or the funny thing is, I should say, I very rarely go to Browns games. It's just not really my scene. It's downtown, et cetera, et cetera. But me and my wife were actually at the game on Thursday Night Football where they brought in Baker and won. And like had lost like, I don't know, 15 games in a row. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so I had to bring that one up because I was stretching back because I'm like, where's Johnny Manziel fit into and how far back am I going? And pretty soon you're like, oh, this you can reach back to all the way to Tim Couch.
Kizer was after Manziel.
He was after Manziel.
I can't even. I know it just doesn't even compute to me. Kizer was so bad.
Yeah, and I see Nick Ostersaw, Seneca Wallace, former Seahawk. He had a game, a start or two. Yeah, so it was. I wrote up a whole thing, and then I'm like, why am I writing this up? And we'll get to tonight's game. I was like, why am I writing this up? I'm just relitigating what's already on Wikipedia. But since you were the host, I wanted to bring it up. So I will tuck this away for another day. But it was.
Thank you.
It was interesting to say the least. Interesting to say the least. All right, so back to the fun. Baker Mayfield, how are you feeling about him? Texas boy coming back home here, right? He apparently did not like the Cowboys when he was growing up, but friends and family in the stadium here. How are you feeling about Baker Mayfield going against that dinged up Dallas D?
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like about Baker Mayfield? He's been arguably a top 5 quarterback this year. He's done it in tough spots, a la last week against the Chargers. Now in prime time, Sunday Night Football against a weak Dallas secondary. It's Baker Mayfield, so turnovers come with him, but he's been a lot better than that. He's been a lot better with that, I should say, for the majority of the year. He went through that one stretch where it got bad, but man, he's been really good this year. It's a good spot. No Godwin, no Kate Otten, but he's still got Mike Evans, who's, obviously a Hall of Famer and just spectacular year after year. He's got Jalen McMillan, who I liked a lot at Washington, who's kind of emerging a little bit. Sterling Shepard. I still think he's got good weapons. And man, this Tampa run game they run on everyone, kind of unlike Tampa of old. So there's a lot to like about Tampa's offense, basically in any spot they're in, certainly tonight. And Baker Mayfield is like the head of the dragon.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you kind of mentioned the heading into the running game here. There's a lot of rookies playing prominent roles here for Tampa Bay. You've got Bucky Irving. You mentioned Jalen McMillan. Go Huskies, my alma mater. I forget if it's their center or their offensive guard was a first round draft pick this year, and then they've got a couple of rookies on defense as well. So it's kind of interesting to see what one really good draft can do for a team that's kind of on the cusp, and they were able to sort of retool on the fly here. But Bucky Irving, the interesting thing about him, well, he's leading the rookies, his draft class in yards from scrimmage. He is also leading Tampa Bay in yards from scrimmage. However, he's barely playing half the snaps, which is kind of interesting. Now, he came out of Oregon. He's like 5'8" or 5'9". I think he's right around 200 pounds. So he's not someone that's going to handle a full workload. So they make the most of it when he's out there. And they are using him in strategic situations. But the good thing is he's capable runner and receiver. Rachaad White, plodding runner, capable receiver. So they can kind of change those guys around and not tip what they're trying to do here, which is helpful. And then you've got Sean Tucker lurking. He's going to be in the field for a few plays here and there, but unless something happens to one of those other guys, hard to see him really doing much here. But the popularity is leaning towards Bucky. Does that make Rachaad kind of interesting for you here? And with both active in the passing game is key.
No, I mean Bucky is so much better than Rashad, and I don't even think Rashad is bad, but like Bucky is just the guy. I know had been a little bit hampered. They kind of used him lightly last week. I expect him to be full go here, and he's just much better to me than Rachaad White. Like I'm not saying I wouldn't like have White in the pool for me, and yeah, I do think it's interesting because he's not going to get a ton of love, but there's like a lot of good players on this slate to roster, and I'd rather just try to get different elsewhere. I like Bucky Irving a lot. I just think he's really good.
All right. Shout out there to SC. He has gifted 5 Stokastic YouTube memberships there. Same with Chris Williams. We appreciate you guys always being in the chat. A lot of fun having everybody around here, the regulars. And it looks like, I think that last game is over. Yep, the Patriots did not quite pull off the upset there of Buffalo. So all of our games are done. Get me back here to the ownership because I wanted to take a peek here where everybody was, and somehow I got logged out. So we've got Evans and Mayfield this is fantasy points, our number 1 and number 2 for fantasy points here. And then it kind of gets a little bit of a crowd, and then it's a whole bunch of nothing. So that whole bunch of nothing, as we saw on Saturday's games, everybody who was a nothing, they seemed to get a touchdown. And everybody who was a something didn't do a whole lot. Obviously, aside from Tank Dell, T's and P's for your knee there, buddy. That looked pretty gory. I finally got to see that one, and Xavier Worthy. But we got to see a bunch of players with 1 or 2 catches and some rando touchdowns, which is what can always happen when we are playing single slate fantasy here. But I wanted to say I wanted to get the ownership up here. Who is your favorite before we get to the receivers here of Baker and the 2 running backs?
Of who's my favorite between Irving,
and his 2 running backs. How would you?
Definitely not White because I don't really like White, and I like Irving over White. And I think I like Irving over Baker, just considering price tag and ownership. I'm over the field on Bucky at captain. I'm under the field on Baker at captain. And at the flex, slightly under on Baker, and I'm over on Bucky. Again, I said at the beginning that Baker is like the head of the snake or the head of the dragon, however you want to put it, and I truly believe that. But the Sims don't like Baker as much as the field does, and I'm not going to fight with the Sims, as I like to say.
All right, so I finally got this up and working. So Baker's number 1, Evans is number 2, 62% and 60%. That's combined ownership, captain, and utility on DraftKings. FanDuel there at 64 is Baker. And then you've got Cooper Rush at 58, Rico Dowdle at 50, and then Mike Evans at 44. But that makes sense because Evans is $15,500. So that's the most expensive player on FanDuel. He's also the most expensive player on DraftKings at 10,600. But that disparity there, and then the difference in the fantasy floor really makes a difference. So that's making it a little trickier to get to Mike Williams there. Still very popular, gonna be in the majority of lineups, but not quite the same as what we're seeing here on DraftKings. Getting into the passing game now for Tampa Bay, we're going to include all the pass catchers here because we saw what happened without or when Godwin and Evans were hurt. We saw that it was Kate Otten stepped in, had some big games, got a lot of targets. Otten is out now, which that's going to open up our discount dandies. So obviously we've kind of hit on Mike Evans going for the 1,000 yards again. He's a phenomenal play. We just saw Jamar Chase rip through this defense for 2 touchdowns on 170 or 160 yards, whatever it was. But now we get to see Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. So McMillan more or less won the third receiver role out of training camp. However, when you're going behind Godwin and Evans, not much of a role. And then he had some drops and he had his own injuries. He's missed 2 different stretches of games. I think he's missed 3 or 4 total games, but he had 2 different injury stretches, hamstring, and then I forget what his other one was. So since the bye, he's kind of come on, putting it all together, running the right routes. He's been running over the last 2 weeks almost exactly the same number of routes in that time frame as Evans, and he has also been up there with the targets. So 3 touchdowns is really skewing his fantasy production. You're going to get stars in your eyes if you go look at his game logs. And then if you look backwards, you're like, oh, do I really want to trust this guy? He's a rookie, but it was very, very good in college. Hurt a lot his senior year. Otherwise, he probably would have had been much like Rome Odunze and Jalen Polk probably would have moved up.
He was like better for DFS college than those 2 the year before. He, like you're saying, he got hurt and he like wasn't as good as them with Penix, but the year before he was like the best wide receiver in college DFS with Tank Dell.
Yeah. So the kind of now McMillan is kind of the number 2, but you got Sterling Shepard, longtime Giant. He's moved into the fray as well. So he's been on this field for nearly half the snaps. I'm bringing these guys up because I don't know what they're going to do at tight end because Otten, good blocker, also a good pass catcher. The work probably is going to be split in some form or fashion between Ryan Miller, who had the first 3 games that Godwin and Evans were out. So it was Otten and basically Miller and McMillan were their other pass catchers. Miller had 5, 3, and 3 targets. And then Payne Durham is a more traditional tight end. So Miller was like a 4-year player. He didn't go to Drexel. I can't think of where he went to, but it was an FCS school. He was an All-American there, but it was at the lower quality. Undrafted free agent, was more of a wide receiver. Didn't have the speed to be wide receiver. Put on a few pounds, not a lot. I think he's just 220 now, but he moved to a tight end position. But you've got Payne Durham, who's out of Purdue. He was a 5th round draft pick, if I remember correctly, in looking that up this morning. So he doesn't have quite the pedigree of the stats, but he did it at a higher level. And he's about 250 pounds, so he's more of the blocking guy. But he can also catch passes. He just really never had the opportunity. And then Ko Keefe is lurking out there as well. He does not have any targets this season. I think for his career, has 13 catches or something like that. He's played in all the games, but he's mostly a special teams guy. But he's probably going to get some opportunity. He'll be on the field. I don't know if he'll get targets, but he'll be on the field. But what do you make of this tight end mix, and where does Shepard fit in with McMillan?
So tight ends. As far as the tight ends go, I think Payne Durham looks like the clear top value play on the slate. He projects as such. He's only 200. He's got certainly like a much higher ceiling than guys at 200 usually do, just because we're not exactly sure how he's going to be used, but it's likely he is on the field and is used in some capacity. So I understand why he's getting a lot of love because he opens up roster construction. My biggest problem is just the opportunity cost because There's so many good players on this slate, and I understand what he opens up, but it's not even like there are that many studs to get to. There are studs, certainly, in Evans and Lamb, but there's a lot of good, like just mid-tier plays that could score really well here. And if you use Durham, again, it opens up a lot for roster construction, but you're not getting to one of those guys who I think can actually break the slate. And while Durham could obviously end up being the top value on the slate, I'm just not sure it's the type of night where like his, 5 fantasy points is in the winner. It could be, but like when we had the Bengals Cowboys, that slate where the Bengals are so top heavy and you needed Chase Captain. You also needed Burrow and Chase Brown and Lamb. For that slate, it made sense because, like I just said, the Bengals route tree is very condensed and it's also very expensive. The Bucks is not as condensed and it's not as expensive outside of Evans, who obviously is a really good play. But even Evans, he's not as expensive as Chase was or is. So it's just a different scenario. I don't think Durham is as needed as he would be on a slate like that. That said, like with all that being said, he's 200 and he's going to be on the field. So I understand why he's popular and I have no problem with anyone that wants to use him.
So I had two different lineups. So I just dropped some more team free money cash games, EMac giving back to the community, username EMac there in the DK lobby, just a buck. Pride is priceless. I had one where I did not use Durham, and I had a pretty solid lineup, but I was not able to get both quarterbacks in. And so I went with kicker and then with Jake Ferguson. So I had Tampa kicker and Jake Ferguson. I can go with Durham, and then I can upgrade to Baker Mayfield. So I think that's going to be the lineup most people run. You have Evans at captain, Cooper Rush. I closed my screen. Aubrey's in there, and that's it for the team. That's all 6 players. So that I think is going to be the more popular one for anybody that uses Durham. If you want to go differently, go with both kickers, downgrade Mayfield, upgrade from Durham to Jake Ferguson, who's struggled a little bit this season compared to last year. It was the other option. So I'm going to go with the Durham lineup, I believe. So if you guys are playing that one, don't play that one against me. But if you like that other one, play it against me. Hey, maybe you'll kick my ass with my original lineup. Wouldn't that be fun? Let's move over to the Dallas side. We'll circle back here on special teams. We have 25 minutes until lock. So CeeDee Lamb, very spendy, second most expensive player on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Tampa's allowing about 250 yards per game through the air, but that is partly because they're not a bad defense. They're tenacious against the run, especially when they have Vita Vea in there, and they're putting a lot of pressure on opposing teams because they're scoring almost 29 points a game, which is third or fourth in the NFL, which it makes other teams have to throw against them. So I want to be clear, they're not a bad pass defense. They have been pass funnel defenses before. Now they're a pass funnel defense, but they're still decent. And they're going to get to go against Cooper Rush. There's, just a decimated offensive line here for Dallas, a non-existent running game here. So CeeDee Lamb not having anywhere near the all-pro season he did last year, where he was basically the top receiver in the league, but he's still getting a boatload of targets. With Cooper Rush under center, he's getting to averaging 10 targets a game. It's the pop gun offense. He's not really getting down the field, so we're needing the PPR goodness. Brandon Cooks is back. In the last 3 games where he's been back, he's had 15 targets. Jalen Tolbert and he are kind of battling for that wide receiver 2 role, with both of them kind of splitting time and workload. Ultimately, I think Tolbert is the better option, but that doesn't mean that's how it's going to play out, especially with Cooks being a little more sure-handed and running some of those shorter routes. He's kind of getting a little bit of attention from Cooper Rush. And then Kevontae Turpin, he's been a discount dandy for us a lot at this times already this season, Matt, but he is up to $3,000 on DraftKings. He should be on the field for 10 to 12 plays. He will probably get like an end around or a jet sweep and 2 targets. And then he's their main kick returner, but we don't need that extreme value because we have Payne Durham. So that kind of muddles things a little bit. And then do we care about Jonathan Mingo? Jerry does. I don't think we do. What are you seeing here from the pass catchers, non-tight end pass catchers here?
Well, I will say it just goes to show you how good CeeDee Lamb is. He comes into tonight tied for fourth in the NFL in receiving yards, and he's clearly not having as good of a year as he was last year.
He's
And
top 10. He's top 10 in almost everything, but he's not
he'll be
apex
third in
predator.
receiving yards after tonight. He'll be third. Now he's a far distance from Chase and Jefferson right now, but he's still, I mean, one of the top 5 easy wide receivers in football. I'm with you though. Like the way you're kind of breaking this game down, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't like bet your mortgage on Tampa. You clearly love Tampa in this spot. I get it. Like they're the better team here. And to be fair, I'm way over the field on Tampa's D here. I'm over the field on Dallas's D also. Dallas, again, they're pretty hit or miss. Maybe they show up dead today because, like you said, Washington wanted to kill their playoff dreams, but they're at home here. And I don't know. Again, they're only like a 3.5, 4-point underdog. So I don't even remember what you asked me. Sorry.
Pass catchers with the wide receivers. How do you see the wide receivers shaking out for Dallas?
Lamb is the guy that I'm currently getting pretty significantly over the field on. I think that might be why I'm not getting as much Baker. Mostly in the captain though. I'm overweight in the captain. I'm a little bit under in flex. I'm fine with that. As far as the other pass catchers go, I'm over on Ferguson everywhere, and I like that. I think he's a solid play. He's one of those guys I talked about where like he could be easy a top 3 leading scorer on tonight's slate. And if that's the case, you probably don't need Durham's 5 points. Like, because Ferguson's really cheap himself. It's just a different slate than we had when Cincy played Dallas. So I'm way over on Ferguson. Lamb, I'm about with the field. Tolbert, a little bit under, and I don't really have much else, and I'm fine with it. Dallas has nothing outside of CeeDee Lamb, Dowdle, and Ferguson. I like Dallas because their route tree is very defined. It's those 3 guys. Sure, they sprinkle in others occasionally. We've seen Turpin get there sometimes, but I'm not overly worried about him. Tolbert, whatever. It's Dowdle, Lamb, and Ferguson for me.
All right. So the I don't even want to say it's the knock on Ferguson because last year we were all excited about he looked like the heir apparent to Dalton Schultz. He earned the Pro Bowl in his first year as a starter. But what's kind of happening this year is he's a decent blocker. So with that crappy offensive line, he's having to chip block on the defensive ends somewhat before he's going out in the routes. Now we did see. Oh, I'm losing track of Schoonmaker. I was thinking Peyton Hendershot, but he got moved to Kansas City. It was Schoonmaker who got peppered with targets when Ferguson was out, because that was kind of, Cooper Rush's running the pop gun offense there. So we would like to think that Ferguson is going to, get back to where he was. He is the cheapest he's been in ages. I think he was out with concussion, I think, was what it was. And then he had missed some time earlier in the year as well. So he had 6 and 4 targets over the last 2 games, but his last red zone look was back in week 9. Now, again, he missed a couple games since then because of injury, but that's a long time to go without any red zone love here. Schoonmaker and Brevin Spanford, yeah, not really worried about them. Schoonmaker had 2 and 0 targets since Ferguson returned. Brevin Spanford, I think, has 1 in the last 3 games. He's just a complete afterthought, and I'm manifesting a touchdown for him here. You can see what I'm doing, but yeah, don't really want to play him at all. Turning our attention to the running backs here, only Sincere McCormick has rushed for more than 43 yards against Tampa Bay. He had 78 in his one moment of glory, started the next week hurt, out for the year. That would be the Raiders running back there. Dalvin Cook, complete afterthought at this point. Deuce Vaughn, we mentioned, was inactive. So you've got Ezekiel Elliott still in the mix for about 15% of the plays. What if he got one more touchdown and jumped in the Salvation Army kettle just for one last hurrah in the holidays? Could this be it? Could he eat some cereal for us? Remember those days, those glorious days of Ezekiel Elliott?
Oh, yeah.
Father Time is undefeated. Father Time is undefeated. So Elliott's going to be out there a little bit kind of as a pass blocker. And then Hunter Lupke, the fullback, doesn't get carries, gets a few passes, but he is like a homeless man's, poor man's Kyle Juszczyk. So he's just kind of out there as we used to call that the H back in the 80s and the 90s, but he's a tight end kind of without a position. He's not really a true fullback. Dowdle, this comes all full circle here to Dowdle. He is kind of taking command of the backfield finally, but what backfield is there? So I would like, please, if we can have Christmas miracles a little early, I would like to see 2 or 3, maybe even 4. I don't want to get greedy. We'll stay with 3. 3 of his 19 handoffs turn into targets. Because if McCarthy keeps running him into the line, this is just not doubt. How's he going to get the fantasy goodness for us unless he finds his way to the end zone, Matt? He's not getting the targets, and running into the line, he's not getting the yardage. Okay, he's getting the yardage, but that was against the Giants with 112 yards, Cincinnati with 130 yards, and Carolina with 150 yards. I just said nobody except for Sincere McCormick got over 50 yards for Tampa Bay. This is a tough order, and you got 400 pounds of Vita Vea taking up 3 blockers in the middle of the line here. Maybe even 4. He's kind of big.
Yeah, I definitely like Dowdle more than you do. He's just good. And yeah, like he hasn't been used as much out of the passing game as you would like, but it's not like he's non-existent there. And if it's a trailing game script, I'm sure he's going to be used more. Again, I think that Dallas is pretty easy. Like it's Lamb, then Dowdle, then Ferguson for me. I think Dowdle is just, again, a really good back. And I think you have to look at, you know, who has, excuse me, Tampa, like who are all the running backs they've played recently? Like I can't, like I'm not sure. So I think all that stuff needs to be taken into context.
One moment, and I will get that up here because we like to leave no stone unturned. So the running backs,
he's not in a good spot. I'm not trying to argue that. I get it.
No,
like,
but this is
go
fair.
ahead.
It's fair. Gus Edwards and Kamani Vidal. Okay. Sincere McCormick. All right. Chuba Hubbard. Didn't have a good game. The Giants. So Singletary and Tyron Tracy didn't do much. McCaffrey, 39 yards, but turns out McCaffrey's kind of hurt.
He got hurt in that game.
Yeah. And then you're up back to Kareem Hunt with 106 yards. I'm sorry. I should have said in the last 5 games, nobody'd gone over that many yards against Tampa.
So I'm glad that I asked you to read this because Kareem Hunt, mighty Kareem Hunt, went for over 100 against them.
All right. Derrick Henry got him for 169, but that was back in week 7. So things have tailed off here. So it is possible. But remember, Vita Vea was out for some of those games.
So, and I will say, like their run defense has certainly been better, but they haven't faced like a gauntlet at all. Chuba Hubbard's probably the best back, and that was a bad game for Carolina. They just weren't in that game. Dallas just rolled last week. So like I'm with you. I don't think it's a great spot for Dowdle. I'm also like not afraid to use him here, just considering again, it's a showdown slate. I think that his workload is pretty much guaranteed, and he's been really good. And I still think there's some unknown in Dowdle, just because, as you mentioned or alluded to early on, they hadn't given him the full, like the bell cow workload until recently. So, I think he's a really, really talented back. His role is perfect. Is it the perfect spot? No, but I don't know if it's as bad of a spot as like the last 6 Tampa games would indicate,
Yes. And if he was getting 4 targets a game, we'd have a different answer, right? If he was getting 15 carries and 5 targets.
I'm surprised he's not getting 4 targets a game.
It doesn't make sense, right? Cooper Rush isn't really passing to the running backs at all. It was Schoonmaker, and then it hadn't really been Ferguson. So it's just kind of been interesting here for that, because I would have figured that would be the strategy. So, hey, if we can blame it on Mike.
I will just say, though, like to counter my own point, Dowdle's last 3 games were against Carolina, Cincy, and the Giants. So, like, there's something to be said there, too. You know what I mean?
Yes. So, do we know what's going to happen? No. Should we bet on the opportunity? Probably, right? Notice how I didn't say bet on the talent. Should we bet on this opportunity? Yes. I think we have to kind of stir our way into that, because it just makes sense. If not him, who else? It ain't going to be Ezekiel Elliott. It's not going to be Hunter Lupke. And Mike McCarthy's not going to let him pass more than 65% of the time at the most. So someone in the backfield is getting action. at this
I
point.
do think it's like, if not him, then like more Tampa on this slate, like, which I think a lot of people are going to do. I think Tampa is going to be the more popular side here. That said, as I mentioned, Dallas, their roles are pretty easily defined. So it's not like you're going to sneak up on anyone by rostering the main Dallas guys either.
All right, so I'm putting in some. I'm trying something a little different with building out the using the Sims here. Reminder: promo code Celebrate gets you all NFL through the Super Bowl, the entire max package for NFL for $179. That's a really good deal. What are we celebrating? Well, we are use
I
promo
was
code
going to say, you
Celebrate.
have to sing that for it to count.
Yeah, it's Madonna. What a world. What a world. In any event, we're celebrating 3 Millionaire Maker winners here. Plus the boss man got his second one. That would be Alex Baker. So we are celebrating that by using promo code Celebrate to get you $179 for any NFL, for the NFL Max Sims package. I'm putting in some caps here of where I want players to hit with my MVP slots or with my captain slots here. So the field we have around 20% for Mike Evans. I'm going 25. CeeDee Lamb we have for around 15. I'm going with 22. Baker Mayfield, I'm going to go with 17. Rico Dowdle, I'm going to go above the field. I'm going to go above the field. I don't know if I'll get that cap, but by pushing some of these down, it forces me to get a little bit different here. I'm going to go with 17% for Dowdle as well. And then Jake Ferguson will go with 7, Bucky 7, Brandon Aubrey, let's go 2, Cooper Rush will go 7. No, we'll go 7. Cowboys defense 2, because I'm curious to see how this will play out, because when you're on these shows and you're not able to craft your lineup at home, is it home in or hone in? Actually, it's hone in, but we've changed it to home in because everybody says it wrong. So that is allowing me to disperse my lineups a little bit, and I'm using one unique. That's something I've started doing on showdowns just to get a little bit different here, but that allows me to quickly get a diverse player pool here, and it looks like I'm going to have 60% Payne Durham. So that will be interesting. Let's see what's happening to the kickers. I'm right around the field. I'm going to give Brandon Aubrey a little boost there because he is an amazing kicker. He is probably the reigning kicker. He has taken that mantle from Tucker. From Justin Tucker. He has the second longest field goal in NFL history. Last year, he led the league. I think it was in makes, and he is on pace to have more made field goals this season. So look to Brandon Aubrey. On the other side, you've got Chase McLaughlin, who is a solid kicker. He will benefit from kicking indoors for this one. And then defenses, and we didn't hit on it, but yeah, kind of hard. You might get some interceptions. Matt mentioned that Baker Mayfield has some interception issues. They kind of come in bunches. He has a 3.4% interception rate this season, which is higher than what he's had in the past. But again, decimated secondary here could make it tough to get there. We are 10 minutes away from lock. So Malcolm Revamp has a super chat here. $1.99. How much to leave? How much would you leave on the table? I probably wouldn't leave more than $1,000 tonight. Let me unfavorite and refavorite, and I can sort and tell you the most I am leaving on the table, courtesy of the Sims. It looks like I've got one lineup with 47.8. So looks like the majority of my lineups, however, are within $1,000 of the maximum. Now, I did not limit dupes on this. That's something I wasn't quite as worried about. And it looks like I'm not really landing on the dupe lineup. Like there's some lineups, 11 dupes, 5 dupes, 4 dupes. What that means is how many dupes out of, I think it's out of, I can't remember if it's out of 100 or out of 1,000, but usually you want 3 or less in showdown slates. I didn't set a rule to get there, but it looks like my ROI choices are keeping me away from those. So I'm going to unfavorite, quick favorite, and then I'm going to download these and get this off to the races. There. All right. What else do we have for questions? I did. Malcolm revamps. Don't. I wouldn't go. Jordan's talking to me. He's not talking to you guys because Jordan can be a little persnickety at times.
I don't personally care about leaving, like how much I leave on Showdown. Like I just again like let the Sims do its work, and like I personally don't care. I my in my top 15 lineups, the least amount of salary I've got one that's 46.9, couple in the 47s. So yeah,
Each slate is going to be different. It all
right.
where it's going to come into prominence is um with the $200 tight end, Payne
See,
Durham.
that's where like if I were using him and I've been thinking about this slate, like I'm just thinking about this like if I were practically just like building out lineups, I'd only really want to use him and save salary and use him not just because of like the 4 points he's projecting for, but like actually project him for like a real score that like you're gonna need, not just because he's 200. Just because I think basically all the lineups that use all the salary with him are gonna be duped like pretty
Right.
excessively.
So that was the one that had him with 11. That must be, I didn't look to see. That was probably what I'm using as the cash game lineup with him in there. But that would be where you want to start thinking about leaving stuff on the table. Now, when a lot of times when we say, oh, we're using the Simpson, we're doing this, you can use the stock settings as you see fit, or you can, start making changes, balancing things. There's all sorts of ways that you can filter and maneuver things around. So that's one important thing to remember is it's not just, pushing the button. I mean, it can be because it's simming these things 40,000 times. So and it's a play-based simulation. So that gets down to the nitty-gritty here. So what that is all a long way of saying is it's taking into account a lot of randomness and things of, variable outcomes. So if Matt and I are both hitting Sims, we will get an approximate portfolio of similar plays and similar lineups, but there's not going to be a ton of dupes between them when we start to say, oh, I'm going to add in one unique. What that means is you need to have at least two different players than the next lineup it likes instead of just one different, right? So it's you just use it. I know it says one, but it really diffuses it. So it's just saying you need to have two different players. So those are interesting things that you can do by me capping the captains. That's changing things as well. You can then start filtering by, do I want 3 threes, 2 fours, 4 twos, 5 ones, 1 fives, etc. For these games? Do I want to start filtering on the pairings of quarterback and their receivers? Now, again, the sim is going to take care of this. The ROI is going to take care of a lot of these decision points, but it's something if you want to, hey, I want to make sure I have this particular thing. It might be a little different than what others are doing. Or I want to make sure I have at least 5 lineups that are doing Dowdle at captain, but I want to have Mayfield and I don't know, McMillan, but I don't want Evans. Right. You can start filtering those out. But otherwise, we're seeing more and more a lot of what we thought the tried and true things were for DFS. Once we're able to run the math and we now have these simulations here that is like having a giant laboratory running, thousands of slates, we're seeing things are a little bit different than what we thought they were. Just new technology, right? New ways of looking at things. 4 minutes until lock. Who are you afraid of not having well represented in your lineups?
Rashad White for sure, because I have 0. So it's gonna be Rashad White. Yeah, I'm under on Baker.
Does that mean I have any? Because I was not looking that closely.
You might not.
I got 11% Rashad White.
How many lineups you playing?
100.
Okay, so you've got 11 Rashad Whites.
I'm gonna up his just a tick, just a tick, just because I don't want to go all in on Bucky. Let me see what I had Bucky there, and then I better get this uploaded. Bucky, I had because I unfavorited. I have 0 Bucky, but now suddenly I have 35% Bucky. So I'm matching the field. I'm going heavy on the passing.
Yeah, the guys I'm way under on are Sterling Shepard, Durham, and Baker. And I was wrong before. I am a little bit over on Bucky and captain, but I'm under in flex. So I'm under on Bucky, and I'm not getting a lot of Rashad White, and I'm under on Baker. I am over on Evans though. So he's the one Tampa guy, him and McLaughlin and the Bucks D that I'm way over on. And it's honestly just like an ownership thing within the Sims, I have to imagine.
Yep. All right. I'm going with that. Unfavorite favorite. Did Jordan put up the poll? There's 3 minutes. I got this. I got this. I'd see this is when scary things happen, Jordan. So let me do my little special trick to sort the winning lineups up to the top because you want to get those in more contests than others, Jordan. That's how that works. And we are going to upload this. God, I see a lot of Rico Dowdle. But that's okay because Matt says Rico Dowdle is good. You know who Matt said was going to be good last night? Bobby Portis. Sometimes we should listen to Matt.
Yeah, I don't deserve credit for Bobby Portis, but yeah, I mean Portis with a that was fun. I was chuckling at Portis. I mean, with probably the best game of his career, I have to imagine.
All right. Yes, it was. Looking to see if there's any questions. FanDuel MVP. All right. If it's not Mike Evans, who is your FanDuel MVP?
I like Dowdle here. Again, half point PPR. I think he could easily be the leading scorer today.
I think that's reasonable. I'm feeling very Santa-like today. It's my white beard. It's my white beard. Perhaps I'll put on some festive overalls as well. It'll be a good time. It'll be a good time. We have 1 minute left. So thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. It's a busy day. It's around the holidays. We got up to around 900 people, a little lighter than we normally do, but it's, again, later in the season, and a lot of stuff coming up in the next few days. Plenty of NFL slate. So remember, use the promo code CELEBRATE, gets you the rest of the season through the Super Bowl of the NFL Sims package, Max package. The EV promo. What is the EV promo? Oh, Portfolio EV. That was when I had to reboot because Zoom wasn't working. I lost that screenshot. So key things that we want to know. Gift EV, that is GIFT EV, gets you the Portfolio EV, which is on OddsShopper, a 1-month package for $49.99. That is a $50 savings. Promo code GIFT EV. That is the gift you can give to yourself. And you really should. And I saw Laffy had me retweet something, and I think he did an interview of someone in my home state of Florida, where we have one sports book, was talking how he was really crushing with Portfolio AV. I'm doing okay, but I liked it better when I was in Virginia and had literally every book known to man. But I'm gonna have to go see how one of my fellow Floridians is racking up an 11% ROI. Because that's better than break even. I'll live with break even, but you know what? I'd like to make a little something. That would be good. Not having to redeposit is key. But I like to start withdrawing more than just for DFS. But with that, we're going to get on out of here. You guys can follow Matt on Twitter at FantasyTipsMatt. You can find me at EMac DFS, and of course, it is Stokastic _COM. With that, gamers, good luck.